All right, Hoopers, it's the end of the year, which means it's time for another annual award show. It's being the second one. So far, 75th anniversary of the NBA 75th year. It's been a good year. Been a lot of good basketball, especially the past month. Been a lot of 50 balls. Robert Covington has dropped 46 on 11 threes the other night. But like I said, we're here for our second annual Hoopers Award show, and we'll be joined by some pretty good basketball minds, if I say so myself. A couple returning guests of the show. One person coming back from last year. We got two newcomers, of course, coming back from last year. We got Nick Andre up first. What's going on, Nick, man?
What's good with y'all, man? You already know what's good every time I come on with y'all, man. So I'm definitely excited to see where the show goes. I'm excited.
Nah, for sure. And then joining us from off the ball podcast network, brother. We got Nice from Ball Fake Podcast. What's going on, man?
Not too bad. I was really excited when y'all gave me that, direct message about coming on the show and everything. I've been admiring the work that y'all been doing, ever since I joined the network. So it's really good to be a part of it.
Nah, for sure. Hey, man, you've been dropping some good stuff. I love that Darius Garland, LaMelo Ball comparison.
Yeah, I got a lot of backlash for that one, but hey, don't kill the message.
Y'all gotta send me that, bro. Y'all gotta send me that, bro. I'm looking to get into that, man.
I got you for sure.
Last but not least, we got returning guest Deshaun Butt. He was just on last week's radio show with us. What's going on, Deshaun, man? Oh, you can hear us, Deshaun?
Nah.
You hear us? We can hear you. Yeah, you say you can't hear us. We heard you, but can you hear us? Right. We're gonna bring Deshaun back in a moment, like he's having a little trouble hearing us. We can hear him, but we're gonna go ahead and get this started. Like I said, this is the second annual Hooper Awards show. And like I said, we got some guests here who I think paying a lot of attention this year. So I think this is going to be a really good show this year. Up first, we got the Young Hooper of the Year award. And this doesn't have to be a rookie. This can be any player, rookie up about 4 years, just to showcase how much young talent we got in this league. So to start off first, we're going to go with Nice from Ball Fake. Who you got for your young Hooper of the Year?
For me, it took me a little bit to come up with, with a good conclusion. But after, a few minutes just sitting down, analyzing, some film and looking at a few of these guys' numbers, these 4-year players' numbers, I went with Ja Morant out of Memphis because what he's been able to do at the NBA level since he started, it's been tremendous. This is a 6'3", 6'4" guard who is essentially top 5 in points in the paint. He's ranking up there with guys like, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo from that perspective. And then not to mention, he's got the Memphis Grizzlies rebuild way ahead of schedule. Nobody expected them to be, a top 2, top 3 seed in the Western Conference this year, especially, with them essentially being gentlemen swept in the first round of the postseason last year. So Ja Morant, he was essentially a very easy pick for me, especially with him playing at an MVP caliber level this year. So I went with Ja Morant for my young Hooper of the Year.
That's a good pick. Ja has been playing that. Look, I said the same thing about Memphis. Like, that timeline is a lot earlier now than it was at the beginning of the season. Nick, who you got for your young Cooper of the Year this year?
No, honestly, that's honestly a good pick. In my opinion, Ja has got to be at least top 3 in MVP candidacy this year. But for my young Hooper, this is a guy right here. This is honestly an underdog to me because, obviously with the circumstances that's going on in his team, he's able to really flourish, get that opportunity to be a starting point guard. And, he's really been taking advantage of it. And that's Anthony Simons, who this year increases point total by 10 points. He's averaging, or throughout the season, he's averaging 17.3 points on 44% shooting. Honestly, I'll be real. Like, I didn't see this bad from him coming, honestly. Like, just his ability to score, his ability to create. Obviously with the circumstance with Damian Lillard out, CJ McCollum obviously getting traded, they really relied on him to really carry the load offensively, and he's definitely been doing that. So even though Portland hasn't really been that solid this year, he's probably been their most consistent factor so far.
Nah, yeah, they feel, man. Especially after that CJ McCollum trade, they really let him, just run the offense and just get his numbers off him. Coming into the NBA, he was looked at as a long range shooter and an athlete, but not necessarily a scorer like that. Honestly, coming out of the IMG Academy.
Yeah, that was a different pick. I like where you went with that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, Deshaun, can you hear us now? We still having some technical difficulties up there in Detroit, but we're gonna try to keep, make sure he can join us at some point.
Keep going. Yeah,
definitely. So this year, I think is gonna be the most disputed defensive player of the year.
Wait, hold on. You didn't say your young.
Oh, my young Hooper.
Yeah.
My young Hooper. Yeah, my bad. I didn't know he was doing this.
I mean,
no, but if I had a pick,
because I like
Ja
with
Morant,
Ja and then with Anthony, so I like those two. So I want to do something different.
Well, I would go with Darius Garland. That would be my pick if I was.
I like that.
I feel like Darius Garland, especially after the Colin Sexton injury, he's kept this team together, and I think he's playing a lot better than I think people would even thought he was going to play this year, especially with the way he's playing point guard. About a month ago, I had him on my third team All NBA until I started being fair to Trae Young with his numbers. I had to be fair to Trae. Like, Darius Garland's probably going to miss out on All NBA because of Trae having that amazing season. And the Cavs team as a whole, I think me and you talked about this on the timeline once, Ball Fake. Like, it's a good team. Darius Garland makes
They are a good team.
Honestly, like, Mobley is Rookie of the Year, but when you throw in Garland,
that can be disputed. That can be disputed, but I'll take it.
We'll get into that.
That's another show. How about you? You got a pick for your Hooper?
Same pick, Darius Garland. No need to say.
You ain't gonna go nobody different. We all pick someone different.
Yeah, you're right. So I'm gonna go young Hooper in the first 4 years. I'm gonna go Trae Young because I don't think Trae Young is gonna get a lot of love on the award circuit. Right. Trae Young is gonna finish top 5 in scoring, top 5 in assists, 36, 10, and 6 on Brooklyn last night to get them up out of there. So I'm going with Trae Young. That's a good pick.
I wasn't even thinking like that's
he's not gonna get no love. I don't think he's gonna make All NBA this year. He should, but I don't think he is because
so speaking on Trae Young, I actually just had a conversation with Pat Benson, who covers the Hawks, and he was saying that Trae Young should be an MVP candidate.
Oh, no way. No way.
That's what he said. Hey, I'm telling you what the man said.
I get the thinking behind it though, because if you're just looking at the individual season, he's absolutely putting up MVP numbers. But to Fresh's point, as always, you got to win a little bit.
Yeah,
that's true.
Just a little bit.
I can't have him in the MVP conversation because the Hawks came into the season with expectations and they simply haven't met them despite all the different reasons they haven't. But Trae is having a great year though, so All NBA is more appropriate.
Yeah, and outside of the Los Angeles Lakers, the Hawks, they're probably second when it comes to being the most disappointing team this season. Now, when we talk about the MVP, award and everything, and players being in the conversation, I've always had this notion that we should probably change the name of the award, right? Because it's very hard to actually tell who is. It's not hard to tell who's valuable to their team. But as far as comparing it to other guys, we can look at the statistics, we can look at the advanced numbers, we can do all that stuff. That can give us probably the best, chance of really analyzing it properly. But at the end of the day, who are we to say that, Nikola Jokic is more valuable to his team than, Joel Embiid is to the Philadelphia 76ers? It's really hard to kind of tell from that perspective. That's why I feel like, they should probably change it to like most outstanding player of the year or the player of the year, because it's just a lot more clear cut. There's not going to be any bias as far as, criteria and things of that nature. The criteria would stay consistent because you're just going off of who played the best individually, because that's essentially what the award is about. And, a guy like Trae Young, for example, he's been playing his ass off all season, averaging nearly I think he's averaging a double-double as of right now. What is he, 30 and 10? Probably second, third in the NBA in terms of assists, top 10 score, things of that nature. But, he doesn't have the supporting cast as of right now for him to really even be able to be catapulted into that conversation. So that's why I feel like we should probably change the MVP award name. But we can probably get into that a little bit later on. But that's just my thoughts.
I like that, honestly. Most outstanding. That makes sense. That actually makes sense, honestly, when you think about it.
And I've even gotten a little bit of pushback about most outstanding because – Ja Morant's been outstanding, but has he been the best player individually this season? You don't know. So it's like it's just a toss-up, man. It really is. The names of the awards, we got to do a better job of, just finding the right criteria to be able to, give out these awards accordingly.
But that's the thing though as well. Like when you say most outstanding, because like when you look at it from that perspective, a lot of people would probably put LeBron in that category too. I personally don't because the Lakers have been terrible, but he is averaging around 30 a game, so it's like a lot of people would put him as far as that top 5. But me personally, I wouldn't this year.
No, it could only be one winner, so it's always gonna be some
Yeah.
No, for sure. That's why here the last award of the show will be the Hooper of the year instead of the MVP.
So we'll get back to that later.
Something like that, but we'll get back to that later. But I like that because I think with the name change, there can come a criteria set for how we pick these award winners and whatnot, just for the MVP anyway. Because every other award is kind of clear cut. Maybe defensive player of the year too, because it's always a weird pick where somebody don't make
I go back and forth with defensive player of the year because I don't like using defensive stats to come up with a conclusion as to, because a lot of things you do defensively don't show up in the stat sheet. And then there are some things that don't take too much context into consideration. Like I would say defensive field goal percentage, for example, because let's say you're Jaren Jackson Jr., you're defending the basket. And no, matter of fact, let's say you're Jaren Jackson Jr. and you're caught in a switch on the perimeter at the top of the key guarding the Trae Young, right? Let's say he blows past you. And the following guy, who's probably the help defender, maybe let's say it's Steven Adams, for example, he goes up to contest the shot. But whoever is closest to that to the opposing offensive player, if he scores on your team from an offensive perspective, whoever was closest to that player, his defensive field goal percentage is going to go up in terms of percentage. So it's kind of hard to kind of really give full context defensively. And then I also think that just because you lead the league in blocks per game or your top 5 in blocks per game, that doesn't mean that you have the ability to maybe guard 1 through 5 or multiple positions, be versatile from that perspective. Like, some of these other top tier defenders in the NBA, there's guys that can simply, just defend the rim. There's guys that can guard 1 through 5, 1 through 4. And there's guys that, are extremely great on ball defenders, but they're not great as team defenders. So, I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of my case on that.
Just real quick, shout out to VP at Off Ball Network, Mo Murphy, who I guess his family out and doing stuff because he needs some attention at the house or something. Everybody say shout out to Mo real quick, y'all.
Shout out to Mo, my dog, man.
I love that he went dumb player of the night segment on your show, man. It's awesome.
But since you just got in to talk about how you measure defensive players and how we should measure defensive player of the year, how about we get into the defender of the year? And how about we start with you, Nice, since you just broke it down like you read books all the time and whatnot.
Well, I know I said the leader in blocks doesn't really, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't really mean that you probably are the defensive player of the year, although it does give you a case. But I'm gonna act like I'm just gonna negate that statement that I just said, and I'm gonna go with Jaren Jackson Jr., who's actually leading the NBA in blocks per game this year. But I think Jaren Jackson Jr. He's been available. When we look at guys like Draymond Green, who we understand is an all-world NBA level defender, Bam Adebayo, these guys have missed a lot of time throughout this season, right? Jaren Jackson Jr., he's been a guy who obviously has been, a pretty good, adequate defensive anchor for the Memphis Grizzlies. And yes, they have the personnel to, kind of keep their heads above water. They have guys like Desmond Bane who can defend. They have tremendous wings. And this is a team that, grit and grind, defensively, they're going to do the dirty work. They're going to do the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. And I think Jaren Jackson Jr., him being the catapult of all that stuff, I think he deserves Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion.
That's a good pick. That actually is a good pick.
Right. So who you got for the defender of the year, Nick?
Man, I'm going to have to go with the same dude. I got to go Jaren Jackson Jr., honestly. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. I mean, this could be a toss-up, you know what I'm saying? Like you can always give it to Rudy Gobert if you want, but I feel like there's other guys that are really ascending as like top tier defenders, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of them. And the one thing that like choosing this pick, it made me realize like it's kind of like what he said. You know what I'm saying? Like when Jaren Jackson Jr. is available, like it makes a big difference. Like because even you could look at last year, like he only played like I think 12 games on the season last year because he was still dealing with injury. Obviously the Grizzlies was still good, but now you fast forward to this year when he is available. Not discrediting the other guys that have been playing for them, but Jaren Jackson Jr. is a big piece in there. He's able to guard 1 through 5. Obviously, with his what his length and his athleticism, he's able to deflect shots, contest shots. So that's why he's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year.
I think that's gonna be a common thing because I've been saying for like the last 2 or 3 months that Jaren Jackson Jr. should be the defensive player of the year. And I think he should be the defensive player of the year for all the years Miles Turner was robbed of even finishing in the top 3 for defensive player of the year, honestly. But now Jaren Jackson with Steven Adams has definitely been the anchors of that defense. I think Jaren Jackson is one of the few big man defenders that can actually switch it, not be stuck on the island where he's just lost on the perimeter with the better players out there.
I've been juggling Jaren Jackson or I've like Robert.
My bad. Markel Bridges is my actual pick for real.
Okay, Bridges. I like that.
I forgot about that one.
Jaren Jackson and Robert Williams because I like Robert Williams has been really key to what they've been doing. But I'm going Jaren Jackson. I think Jaren Jackson is defensive.
And you know, I had Robert Williams. He was going to be my second pick, but the reason why I took Jaren over him was because Robert Williams in that switch heavy defensive scheme that Ime Udoka has implemented in Boston. For the most part, he's not really defending as an on-ball player. Jaren Jackson Jr. He's getting in switches, and Robert Williams, he does a good job in terms of switches as well. But what Boston does, they don't do a traditional switch where you just switch on one time. It's a triple switch. So that way, Robert Williams, he's not stuck on the perimeter or defending wings on the exterior after switching with a guy like Marcus Smart in the pick and roll. They're switching multiple times. That way he can get back to his original man and be able to alleviate shot attempts around the rim. And on top of that, he's got Al Horford, who's doing a tremendous job of sending the opposing team's offensive players to Robert Williams, kind of similar to what the Utah Jazz do with their defensive scheming, sending everything around, Rudy Gobert into the interior. That way they can, stay in the game defensively from that perspective. So that's why I didn't give it to Robert Williams, but he more than likely definitely is going to be in consideration for the award for the next 4 to 5 seasons.
I agree.
Facts. No, that's a good way to break it down. And then, like I say, Boston's had the best defense since I think January, not All-Star break. Like they've been really good defensively, and I think Robert Williams being able to, that would be a good pick. And I think Robert Williams definitely is going to be up there for Defensive Player of the Year at least 3 or 4 times in the next 10 years, honestly. I think so. To get away from the players real quick, we're going to, give out the Coach of the Year award. And these are the guys who the best coaches make the best out of every situation where you got the best players or the worst players. You see coaches like Quinn Snyder who takes adequate talent and takes them to a first seed last year. You see what Taylor Jenkins is doing down in Memphis. Greg Popovich, even up to this point, without the superstar names, has that team playing like a super. My bad, Nick. We got your defense player of the year because you was up there in awe as well, like with me while he was.
Yeah, I picked Jaren Jackson Jr.
Jaren Jackson, my bad.
Yeah.
Nice talking, and I got my bad. But for Coach of the Year, Nick, who you got for your Coach of the Year?
You got to go Monty Williams, in my opinion. And this is honestly, I think it's close. Honestly, like you can pick Monty, you could pick Ime Udoka, you could pick Taylor Jenkins, Eric Spoelstra, like you know what I'm saying. So it's not like it's Monty Williams like way ahead of everybody. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to consider. I mean, the fact that Phoenix has really been the most consistent team this year. Just being able to just continue to win. I mean, one of the ways that I look at it is like Chris Paul was out for like over a month, and they were still able to keep themselves afloat. Having guys like Cameron Payne just being able to step up as far as that, as far as stepping up as that point guard for the team at that moment. Devin Booker, who deserves that type of respect, even though he's not in the MVP candidacy. He's definitely had a pretty solid season. DeAndre Ayton, who needs his money, honestly, I think DeAndre Ayton needs to get paid. Definitely has had a good showing, but it's other guys as well. Like we mentioned Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, even guys like JaVale McGee who has been able to step up. So, in my opinion, considering that Phoenix has been like the most consistent team, I think Monty Williams should probably get the award.
I think that's true. And Phoenix has been really consistent, especially after those first 2 games where they've basically been the best team in the NBA by far. And on the 60-win team. I don't know if Monty wins Coach of the Year back to back, but I can see him doing that. Nice. Who you got for your Coach of the Year?
Yeah, last year I gave it to Tom Thibodeau because of the job that he did with the New York Knicks. And, Monty Williams, he could have had a really good chance of going back-to-back this year because I have him as the Coach of the Year this year. And, I mean, just to, reiterate some of the things that Nick said, this is a team that's won, probably, what is it, 80 80+% of their games this season. They have they have a better road record than some of these teams, if not all of these teams have as at home.
Right,
like
yeah.
let's just take a second and kind of take that in. The job that he's been able to do with guys like Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul missing time, and being able to instill confidence in some of those younger guys like Cam Johnson, who surprisingly was taken at number 10 a few drafts ago. But, Monty Williams has done a phenomenal job of, helping him with his development. Same thing with Mikal Bridges. He's formed him into a 3-and-D prospect, probably the best 3-and-D wing in the entire NBA, arguably. And,
I agree.
With the integration of even integrating a guy like Chris Paul, a veteran who came into a situation where they weren't necessarily a winning organization. Just the season before, they were in the bubble. They went 8-0, still didn't make it to the postseason last year. And, Chris Paul joining the team, we understand Chris Paul, he's not a guy that is going to take any bullshit, right? And on top of that, with him going into a situation where you don't really know exactly what you might be getting yourself into as far as like a winning perspective, and Monty Williams being able to integrate, Chris Paul, a guy who, isn't going to take any bull crap from that perspective, and being able to, take this team to the NBA Finals last year, and now they're sitting firmly at the top of the NBA. I got to go with Monty Williams for Coach of the Year.
That's all facts right there. Monty has done a great job. Like I say, him, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, at some point all came to agreement that they're going to make it work. And they've made it work amazingly. Even if you think about adding JaVale McGee, Biz McNyombo off the bench, look what he's done with campaign over these last couple of years. Monty Williams has definitely shown that he's a great NBA coach, and he's going to be a great NBA coach for a long time. I got to go with Taylor Jenkins. I'm going with Taylor Jenkins.
I ain't mad at it.
I'm not mad either.
What he's done with Ja this year alone is amazing. Basically 27-8 player. But what he's done with the rest of that team and making sure they're ready, even when Ja is not out there, is great. And I'm not going to take credit away from Ja for Memphis being as great as they are. I'm going to give credit to Taylor Jenkins. I just feel like when you can do a job that well, because Ja's really their only true star on that team. Like Jaren Jackson is amazing. Desmond Bain is great. Dylan Brooks is great. Steven Adams is always consistent. Ja Morant is their only true star. He's what's putting them in second place. They're a playoff team, possibly with him, without him, but with him, they're number 2 seed. And as long as you got Taylor Jenkins, I think they'll be okay. Who you got?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Taylor Jenkins. The way they've been able to stay afloat, better than afloat, without Ja, kind of proves to the point of just everybody being ready. The chemistry, knowing the system, knowing the scheme and stuff like that. So that go all the way to coaching. I can't take away from Ja because I think Ja is what puts them over the top and makes them like elite. But just the job that everybody's done when he's not out, I think starts with the coach.
We actually had
That's a fact.
We had a long talk about this in the group chat the other day. Like, it's like you can't take credit away from Ja from being amazing because his team is good without him. It's some not fluky wins in there, but there's some wins in there against some lesser opponents.
I mean, because at the end of the day, they have you look at them as a young team because the best players are young, but they have Kyle Anderson's been around the league. Tyus has been around. Exactly. He's been around the league. Tyus has been. You got players that's been around the league. When you got professionals, you got a coach that lead the team the right way. They can get wins in the NBA. It can happen in the regular season.
So,
NBA players would make you a championship contender. That's the difference.
So since we're on this Memphis conversation, I want to ask all of y'all, like, how far do we see them going so far in the postseason? Because I mean, the West is still tough. You got Phoenix, you still got Golden State up there. When healthy. Dallas is on the rise, even though I think that Memphis could beat Dallas, but then you still got guys like Utah as well. So like, how far do you see this Memphis team going? I see at least second round, but I wouldn't be mad if they made the conference finals either.
Second round.
I think the second round's it's a safe pick. It's a really safe pick because they're top 2, top 3 in the Western Conference right now, so they're going to get an easy opponent in the first round. They're more than likely going to avoid the Denver Nuggets because the Denver just beating since they beat LA, they are now the 5th seed in the Western Conference. So that makes Utah 6. It would be interesting if they ended up playing them in the first round again, but I don't think that's likely because I think more than likely Memphis will probably finish off the season as a top 2 seed. And with that being said, I believe either the Timberwolves are slated at 7 right now. I think, Memphis is a much more, they're just a better team from top to bottom. Well, a lot more consistent, a little bit more disciplined. They have the defensive mindset. Offensively, they're really composed. I don't think I don't think Minnesota has some of those winning intangibles that can take them deep into the postseason. So I think in my opinion, I could see the Memphis Grizzlies peaking at the Western Conference Finals. Now it's very see where they actually will land come this postseason because it depends on who they face in the second round. And if they face a team like the Dallas Mavericks or maybe the Denver Nuggets, maybe Nikola Jokic can take them above the top. He is an MVP caliber player, and I'm going to have him winning one of these awards that we're going to talk about later on in the show. But I think Memphis, they have the intangibles to go deep into the postseason, and this is a team that is going to do a lot of the dirty work, like I talked about earlier. They're a top team when it comes to rebounding, second chance points. I believe in taking charges and things of that nature. There's a lot of defensive things that are great there. My issue with them offensively is honestly Ja Morant's game because, he does a lot of things as far as like getting into the basket, trying to operate within 8 feet below the free throw line. And I think in the event that you go up against a great defensive-minded team that can scheme against that, because it really shouldn't be that hard to keep Ja Morant out of the paint. But for some reason, throughout the entire regular season, it has been fairly easy for him to, probe around the free throw line area and below. And maybe that's just because defensively in the regular season, you're not game planning for that type of stuff. But I think come postseason, I do have a little bit of concerns of him, just getting downhill and forcing his way below the free throw line every single possession. I think he needs to add a little bit more to his game as far as being a little bit more reluctant as an outside shooter, not necessarily just from 3-point range, but long 2-pointers, free throw line jump shots and things of that nature. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I think Memphis could peak at the conference finals, but I think the second round is very feasible.
Second round. The first round against Minnesota.
Second round is safe.
That second round is safe. Like I said, the first round against Minnesota, they're obviously the better team. I think once you get into that Dallas matchup, Golden State, Denver, I think that's when you start getting a toss-up, especially with a team like Dallas with a player like Luka who's this close. He's this close to actually taking over and taking that next step. Like we've seen him hit a game-winning shot in the playoffs 2 years ago. We've seen him when he's healthy and this team is healthy. Dallas is a scary team. It's just, are they going to be healthy? And I think they finally got the right mix of players around Luka. I don't think he needs Luka doesn't need a second star. We talked about this in the group chat.
Okay. You're going that route.
Luka doesn't need a second star for this team to be as good as they are. And I honestly think that's going to be the difference between Dallas and Memphis. Whereas Memphis might be looking for a second star offensively, Luka is just going to take it over. And players like Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie probably going to be maybe a tad bit better than Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane. But that's probably a fair matchup. I think Jaren Jackson has to finally be that next star they thought he was going to be when they drafted him, honestly, if they want to go to a conference finals.
Yeah, but they're looking more at the Warriors. So when you get
Warriors,
because they're in second place, the Warriors will be in third. So more than likely, they second round matchup. So
I like them against the Warriors. I'm sorry, Nick. The Warriors get blown out in the second round.
Man, you can't say that, dog. You can't say that.
They got to beat them 4 times, and you got you going up against a championship coach that they're going as a player.
But I'll admit though, like as a Warriors fan, it ain't gonna be safe because I'm looking at this roster. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think it's just a lot of young guys on this team though. That's like still inexperienced. They're still trying to learn things. I mean, obviously you got Clay, Steph, and Draymond, but the rest of the guys like Jordan Poole. Even though Jordan Poole's a great player, Gary Payton II, the rest of these guys, Andrew Wiggins and everything, like a lot of them still lack that experience. So I think it's gonna be tough for us.
I would take Warriors.
You say Warriors for
4-1?
4-1 over who?
Memphis. Taking Warriors 4-1.
I'll say 4-2.
Pushing it. I can see Memphis winning a game.
I can see them win
with Golden State. with Golden State, it's I mean, a lot of people like to lean on the fact that they're proven champions, but it's like, okay, the last time they won a championship, it was 4 seasons ago in 2018, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the NBA is completely different than what it looked like 4 years ago. You're looking at those teams in the Eastern Conference. There's legit 10 to 11 playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think, back in 2018, we didn't have that luxury of the talent being so spread out evenly throughout the entire landscape of the NBA. So as far as Golden State, in the Western Conference, I think they can beat every team aside from I think they'll beat I think they can beat the Phoenix Suns as well, but I would just feel a lot better choosing Phoenix over them. But all the other teams, they probably will give them, a push and things of that nature. But I think Golden State more than likely, I can't see any team legitimately beating them in a 7-game series other than the Phoenix Suns.
That's fair. Yeah. And since we're talking about teams right now, we ain't gonna talk about the Lakers, so we ain't gotta talk about the most disappointing teams. But which teams have surprised y'all the most this year? We can start with you, Nice.
Oh man, it's honestly been a lot of teams, and from a positive standpoint, just because the Lakers definitely surprised me. I'll say that, but this is more of a positive award, obviously. But I'm just gonna go back and reiterate to I was going to go Memphis. I'm actually going to go with the Boston Celtics because heading into this season, I did have a little bit of optimism about them being a little bit better than they were in years prior. Obviously last year, first round exit, play-in tournament team. Things not looking too good. Questions about the supporting cast. Brad Stevens' voice kind of, going dry within the locker room. Obviously needed a new voice at the head coaching position. So they brought in Ime Udoka. I knew they were going to get off to a slow start. And once they did that, a lot of people were jumping ship. A lot of people were bringing up the fact that, maybe you need to split up Tatum and Brown. And there just wasn't a whole lot of optimism about that team from that perspective. And for them to, have such a bad start, although it was something that, should have been expected, especially when you're bringing in a new head coach. First and foremost, I trust any coach that is coming out of San Antonio. The Quinn Snyders of the world, Ime Udokas of the world, they always do great jobs. You just got to give those guys time to gel. And I think, we talked about it earlier in the show, the defensive system that they've been able to implement, the triple switchability with Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, all those guys from a defensive perspective. And then also finding that healthy balance with minutes distribution. There was early in the season, I was a little bit critical of Udoka as far as I felt like Boston – because they had one of the worst benches in the entire NBA and they weren't that great as a three-point shooting team from that perspective offensively, I thought guys like maybe Peyton Pritchard needed a little bit more run offensively in terms of, giving them minutes distributions and, just allowing them to have the opportunity to kind of gel with the rest of these guys. Because, in previous seasons, we've seen Peyton Pritchard do, a lot of positive things for the Boston Celtics from an offensive perspective. And, with him coming into the season, only getting 11 minutes to start out the year, and his minutes haven't gone up as of late anyway, but, everybody else for the most part, they've gotten in the right pieces, adding Derek White, getting rid of guys like Romeo Langford at the trade line and bringing in some more pieces that are more adequate to winning. I think, the Boston Celtics, with them being the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, or they might be number two now that Miami, has started to get the ball running again. I think they're easily the most surprising team in the entire NBA for me.
I like that pick. Nick, how about you? Who's the most surprising team for you this year?
I gotta go Cleveland. I don't think anybody expect them to be as good as they've been this year. And you got to think too, they've overcame a lot of adversity. Colin Sexton went down. Ricky Rubio went down. People forgot Rubio was having a pretty good season up until he ended up going down. Obviously, Evan Mobley, who in my opinion is Rookie of the Year. I know it's debatable, especially with what Cade is doing out there in Detroit, but I think Mobley definitely has to be the Rookie of the Year. But definitely the number one guy has definitely been Darius Garland, who has taken this game up to another level, not just with scoring, but his passing has definitely gone up another level. He's really been the leader of that team, just really initiating the offense, just really setting the tone for that team so far. And honestly, I mean, I know we mentioned other guys as far as Coach of the Year, but I think JB Bigstaff got to be up there as well for Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
I definitely agree with that. I like what JB's done with this team. And I don't even think they're looking at JB to be there long term with this team, but I like how he's like to say he's.
You think so?
Basketball. You never know. It's hard to trust an intern turned full-time head coach because you never know how long their voice is gone. Sticking the player's ears to where it's all positive before it gets tiring. I feel like JB is one of those coaches. He's been around so long. How long is he gonna want to stick around us before it's like he's tired of it? So,
well, I mean, if Cleveland continues to,
as I was saying,
hey, you never know.
4 years, I can see him sticking around for at least 2 more, honestly, before they start.
I don't know. I mean, this Cleveland team's young. They're young, so
they've definitely rallied around Bickerstaff. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. They've all highlighted how much they've loved and appreciated him as a head coach. So I think for right now they definitely do have the right guy. It would be really unfortunate if he ended up, leaving the organization. I really wouldn't want to see that if I'm a Cleveland fan. I mean, this is the first time clinching the playoffs since 1998 without LeBron James on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, hey, I don't know who's much better for the job than JB Bickerstaff as of right now.
As of right now, nobody right now.
Yeah, but you're right, because right now is the key. We'll see when you go through some real.
It's like even look at Nate with the Hawks. Like
teams,
it's like
exactly.
look with Nate with the Hawks. Like they love Nate at the beginning of the year. They started off kind of slow, and we don't know if that's what's gonna happen with Cleveland next year. So like I said, I just want to give him some time, but right now he's definitely their coach.
I think with Nate, it was so different though, because it was like with Nate McMillan, he was coming in like towards the end of the season, right? JB Bickerstaff, you had him from the jump, right? He's been able to display, what he can do with a playoff team, and he's essentially turned this young Cleveland core into a playoff team. Now with Nate McMillan, there's always been kind of questions about his coaching tactics and things of that nature, but I feel like honestly the real reason, and I know y'all are Atlanta Hawks fans, so don't bash me for this one, but I've always felt like I've always felt like the reason why the Hawks had such a great postseason run, not to take away from them, but anything away from them, but the Eastern Conference was about as weak as it's been in years. The New York Knicks were a 4th seed, guys. They were a 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. That is crazy. That's crazy. They're what, 13th, 12th, 11th in the Eastern Conference as of right now. And then with them gentlemen sweeping them in the first round, you get the Philadelphia 76ers. Now everybody knows that team. When you really look at the roster, it's not that great of a team in terms of roster construction. The players, even right now with James Harden, they're not that complimentary to each other. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, we all knew that wasn't ever going to work, but the general manager didn't want to break it up, and for right reason. You were a top seed for multiple seasons. There was multiple shots for you guys to make it to the NBA Finals, let alone the Eastern Conference Finals. But I felt like last year the Philadelphia 76ers beat themselves more than the Atlanta Hawks did because they had multiple 18, 20-point leads blown. I think, what game was it? I forget what game it was. But one game they blew an 18-point lead, and Seth Curry and Joel Embiid were the only guys to score in the fourth quarter or the second half, one of the two.
I think it was game 5.
Game 5.
Yeah, that is insane. I mean, credit to the Atlanta Hawks defense. I like DeAndre Hunter. I like all those other guys, but I feel like the Sixers beat themselves more than the Atlanta Hawks did. And Atlanta, they were the pixie dust was definitely on. They were on some March Madness stuff. They had a lot of momentum, adrenaline. They were really feeling good about themselves coming out of that New York series, and I think that momentum just kind of carried on. And the entire postseason, Philadelphia wasn't looking that great. Even in the first round against Washington, there was a lot of close games that they ultimately ended up winning. But that's kind of my case on the Atlanta Hawks. I thought last year was a little bit of a fluke, and you're starting to see that come into fruition.
Oh, snap.
I mean,
you
see that, but winning without expectations is always easier. So nobody expected much out of Cleveland. I mean, because this isn't the first time JB has been a head coach. So that's why when you start expecting them to win, you got to fit back in. Colin next year, he's a 20-point scorer. So how do you make that work? And
I don't know if Colin comes back.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I think Colin might be on his way out, honestly, because I mean, even before this year, they were trying to find a destination for him. So honestly, Cleveland's a team that doesn't seem like they really want Colin.
And they brought in Karis LeVert in his absence.
Trade for him, but he can't just sign anywhere without their rights, and they can say we got.
He's a restricted free agent. That's true, but I think with it's been very clear that Cleveland has been trying to make room for other guys, like specifically Darius Garland, and I think even offensively, I don't want to say that Colin doesn't fit their scheming, but he just takes the ball. He has to have the ball in his hands in order for him to be effective. And if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, you got an all-star caliber guard in Darius Garland. You want him to kind of dictate everything offensively in the half-court setting. And Colin Sexton, I mean, he's a good guard, but I don't know, man. There might be some other issues in the locker room, maybe with other guys. I'm not sure, but they've been kind of hinting towards, wanting him to depart for some time now.
Yeah, they all been on side, but you got the consistency because this is the first year that Garland has been healthy, and even with that, he's been unhealthy a little bit this year too. So they're not just gonna jump off of him until they get it all kind of figured out. So Cleveland looks good. But when it's the same. When they start expecting you to win and you don't win those games, you start struggling because injuries are going to happen regardless. Every year, adversity is going to happen. What do you do to get out of it? And that's Atlanta's problem. They came in this year still on last year, and you got to move on. Yeah, but next year don't matter what Cleveland did this year. That was the Knicks' problem this year. Also, they still telling us about their 4 seed. We don't care about it this year. It's a new year.
I just trust Cleveland more because they did it when the conference was at its best. Like this is without a doubt the best the Eastern Conference.
It's still been some injuries because Boston was struggling. Then Brooklyn has had their up and down. Philly has been so. The East has been good, but we have these same issues every year. It's always a team that sneaks up on somebody. So
we'll see. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers don't make the postseason last year because of those things I said earlier, because the Eastern Conference is just constantly getting better and better. Like those teams like the Charlotte Hornets, they're knocking on the back door. I think Cleveland's only 2 games ahead of Charlotte right now. And you have teams like Atlanta's around that area. And, the Toronto Raptors are on the rise as well. So it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland misses the postseason next year because some of these other teams, these young cores specifically, is starting to got their things together as well. So we'll just have to see.
Next year, that's how they get tired of the coach.
No, that's facts. No, that's right. But I don't think either one of y'all are wrong. But I think both of y'all are coming from. I think both of y'all are on the right track with that. Win with like you are right. Like it's harder to win those expectations. It's harder when you're actually on that. Like you're on that game plan. Like this way you want to shoot from. This way you want to operate. I think that does get a little tougher.
Definitely. Before we make the transition to the next award, what's y'all thoughts on the Hawks? Because I know y'all really like to talk about them a lot. My man Fresh, he got the Atlanta Braves hat on. He representing over there and everything. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on the Atlanta Hawks before we move on.
Yeah, first we represent the Hawks, not just because we diehard Hawks fans, just because that's where we're from. So I feel like the Hawks came into this year smelling themselves. They made the Eastern Conference Finals, and I agree that making it last year was a fluke. Philly blew multiple 20. Not just
y'all gotta give this team a little more credit, dog. Like man,
like they were up 20. They blew second half 20-point leads, and the Hawks took advantage because Trae Young is really that guy. But a lot of people came in this year kind of feeling themselves. It was too many trying to find minutes for too many.
You know what I think was the difference in that Philly series? Coaching. I just think Nate McMillan out-coached Doc Rivers.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that either. And that's also kind of been the problem this year is Nate's coaching also because I just feel like he lacks innovation in his coaching.
That's fair. I think they were trying to do too many things at once, which led to some players not being able to find a consistent role. Injuries again, most used players in NBA history.
That's true.
I think getting rid of Cam cleared some stuff up because now it's like those are minutes you're not playing anybody. So
that's true.
DeLon Wright gets extra minutes. DeAndre Hunter, when he's healthy, gets some extra minutes. I think Trae has to find a good, healthy spot between let me be an all-world scorer and let me actually be a team player as well, because we always say this. It's those nights when he have 32 shots and John Collins has 15 shots where it's like it's not going to work.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you feel like this team is missing a second star? Because I think that would even if you keep the same roster, I think if you brought in another all-star, like a legitimate all-star caliber wing, like maybe Bradley Beal or somebody, this team would look a lot better just in terms from a winning perspective. Not saying Bradley is the ideal guy, but just somebody like that maybe from a certain perspective, because I don't think John Collins can be a number 2 option on a legitimate contending team in the NBA. So I think you guys need a legitimate all-star, but what do y'all think about that?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I know we thought it was going to be a DeAndre Hunter, but you got to stay healthy, because DeAndre Hunter definitely has a lot of qualities as a go-to scorer, especially on the wing. But if we could somehow the Hawks get an all-star level wing scorer, that's a pretty decent defender, which they need to do consistently. Yeah, the Hawks will take that next step, because I feel like it's a lot of teams with a point guard of a Trae Young caliber that's missing a scoring partner to go with him, honestly. The Hawks can find one.
Yeah, like if y'all were able to get y'all's hands on like a Jaylen Brown, right next to Trae Young, and you got John Collins in a half court.
Yeah, now you got John Collins as your third option. Is more of a role man, safe passes for Trae Young. That offense does look a lot better. Yeah, and Jaylen Brown gonna play defense as well.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if the Hawks necessarily need another all-star. Like, they can definitely get another great player, a guy that can, create and get his, but I don't know if it necessarily has to be another all-star, because I don't know. It's like, it's kind of like what we pointed to earlier. Like,
caliber.
Like it's kind of like what we pointed to earlier. Like, Luka doesn't have another all-star. Look what he's doing in Dallas. Same thing, John Morant out of Memphis. Like, Trae Young is just that versatile of a player, where it's like, he's so ball dominant, he can create for himself and for others around him. So it's like, that was one of the reasons why I wanted the Hawks to keep Cam Reddish, because I feel like he would have been able to blossom when healthy alongside Trae Young. So I don't know if they necessarily need another all-star. Like, I just think they need just like solid role players. But I will admit though, I don't know what the future holds for John Collins on the team. It seems like he's not really too fond of being playing in Atlanta. It seems like he wants a larger role, and I just don't know if it's in Atlanta, honestly.
I don't know where that would be in any team in the NBA, honestly, because I don't view John Collins in that sort of light. He's more of a drop off guy. Somebody that any player that needs an additional player to do the majority of the creation for him. I just don't like you as my second option, so to speak, right? And there's certain guys that it's John Collins. It would be different if he was like this. Defensive prowess like a Jaren Jackson Jr. or a Rudy Gobert on the defensive end, and he had a little bit of an offensive game. Like John Collins, his game offensively is very unique. I think 2 seasons ago, him and Anthony Davis were the only 2 players in the NBA to score to have 60 dunks and make 63 pointers. So there's a little bit there offensively, but defensively, if he had just a little bit more value from that perspective, maybe Atlanta would look completely different in the standings today. But I just don't think John Collins is that guy, so to speak, for them.
Yeah. So I have a small scenario real quick, like before we get on. I know we've been going on for too long, but I just have this quick scenario. So what if you paired a Trae Young with a guy like Christian Wood? How would that look?
I think it would be more of the same, honestly.
Okay, because my thing is like Christian Wood, I feel like he's more of a creator than John Collins in my opinion, and I feel like that's where the pressure will be off of Trae as far as having another guy who can at least be able to create their own shot.
I just don't feel like Christian Wood has that ability to really have a noticeable impact on a team like that. Like, sure, he would be a really good acquisition. Don't get me wrong. I think even if you place those 2 right next to each other, that would be really fun to watch. They would be really athletic, probably be top 5, top 3 in terms of transition points in the entire NBA, because the athleticism and what Trae Young's him being able to hunt, assist out, and just being able to create for those guys offensively. It would be really fun to watch, but I don't think Christian Wood is that difference maker to a playoff team, so to speak, just yet in his career. That's just my opinion, though.
No, that's fair. But like I say, on to the next award, we got the Microwave of the Year, which is the 6th man, which is always a fun award because for the longest, Lou had
Mark Crawford.
Mark Crawford had a lock on it. I think we're gonna have a new winner this year. Jordan Clarkson won it last year. But Nick, who you got for your Microwave Player of the Year?
You got to go Tyler Hero, in my opinion. Who, in my opinion, is the Heat's best offensive player. I don't know. I don't even know if that's debatable or not. People may think otherwise, but I think Tyler Hero has definitely been the best offensive player for Miami this year, and he's definitely increased his scoring. I don't know. I think he got into that. I don't know. I like to call it terrible twos, like what I'm saying, when people go into their second year, because like people remember, like Tyler Hero had a great rookie year, but then last year, I'm not gonna say he played bad, but he definitely didn't play to the expectations that he had in the bubble. So for this year, for him to be the most consistent scorer for Miami this year, it's been pretty impressive. He's averaging 20 points a game on 44% shooting. Like I said, I'm basically reiterating, really the best offensive player for Miami this year. So he's really probably like the biggest reason why they're one of the why they are the top seed in the East this year.
No, that's fair. Yeah, he's definitely been there all year as well. So that's nice. Who you got for your Microwave Player of the Year?
More of the same. I'm going to go with Tyler Hero as well. Like Nick mentioned, he more than likely is their best offensive player on that team. And that's probably, one of the biggest issues with this team as well, because, although Tyler Hero is a pretty moderate to slightly above average shot creator from an individual perspective, he's not elite to be able to carry an offense in a postseason for a sustainable amount of time. Maybe certain games he can have a stretch where a 3 to 4 game stretch, maybe even 1 round series where he might be the deciding factor, but I don't think he can carry them to an NBA Finals, and that's why we need guys like Jimmy Butler, kind of take on that role offensively, and he's been doing that, here as of late after the whole dispute with Udonis Haslem and Eric Spoelstra on the sidelines. But yeah, Tyler Hero, he's definitely the sixth man of the year for me. This was actually the easiest pick for me because I didn't feel like there's too many other guys aside from maybe. I can't even think of anybody right now. Tyler Hero, he's the clear cut. This is a guy who's leading the team in points per game in the fourth quarter at 5.7. He's been consistent all year. And I think the reason why he struggled a little bit last year had to do with, his role on the team. They inserted him into the starting lineup a lot. And a lot of the times he was playing out of position. Eric Spoelstra experimented with him at the point guard position. We know Miami's a team that's known for having guys in and out of the lineup, as you saw on display this year. And Tyler Hero not being fully developed just yet, although, he did kind of negate those notions about him being one-dimensional offensively. He isn't a natural point guard. So I think that's played a huge part, and that's why he's struggled a lot last year. But, this year he's back in his traditional role, coming off the bench, mixing it up as far as the ball handling, doing a little bit of creation, a lot of creation offensively for himself individually. And, Miami, they run a read and react type of offense, pick and roll spread offense that includes a lot of screening action, a lot of pistol action, pin downs for shooters coming to the top of the key and things of that nature, a lot of movement. And, with Miami being so good defensively, those defensive possessions that they've been able to obtain, eliminating, the opportunities for the opposing team to score the basketball at a high rate. It's really helped Tyler Hero in a half-court setting and being able to score in transition and things of that nature. So I think Tyler Hero is a clear-cut sixth man of the year for me.
I got Kevin Love real quick because y'all been doing off of it. I had Tyler Hero coming into the year sixth man of the year. That's what I'm sticking with. But Kevin Love has been great off the bench for Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Tyler Hero speak.
Yeah, I think Tyler ran away with the award. And Kevin Love probably finished second, but Tyler ran away. Sure.
So last but not least, we got the Hooper of the Year award, which the NBA MVP race is going to be close coming to the end. And I know this is going to be a good one. So got it in the head. So nice. Who you got for your Hooper of the Year?
Man, it took a lot of analysis and deep digging and, just studying film and things of that nature. But I concluded with Nikola Jokic, and here's why. A lot of people bring up the team record, the standings, and things of that nature. Denver just moved up to the fifth seed, like I mentioned earlier in the pod. But, I believe there's only a 1 to 2 game difference between his team's record and Joel Embiid's team's record. And when it comes to, just statistics, we understand that Nikola Jokic, he's going to clear Joel Embiid in essentially every aspect besides scoring. And that's only because, it's not his role to score the basketball essentially at a high rate. He's not a guy that I'll take that back. Not essentially that, but we understand, he's the person that's supposed to orchestrate the offense. They're not necessarily looking for him to, score the basketball, although they understand that he can do those things. He's the only player in the NBA currently who's top 10 in points per game, assists per game, and I believe rebounds per game as well. And then on top of that, he's improved a lot defensively. He's got a similar record to, Joel Embiid. And although Giannis Antetokounmpo has been playing well, and he's also, his team has a much better record than the Denver Nuggets as of right now, Nikola Jokic is doing it with his two players being out. One of them being an all-star caliber in Jamal Murray, and the other being Michael Porter Jr., who could be, had he stayed healthy this season, been in a most improved player of the year award race. So I went with Nikola Jokic for the MVP.
No, that's fair. Those are all good points because, like you say, what Jokic has done, and Mike Malone, who should also be for Coach of the Year, what he's done this year has been absolutely amazing. As my brother like to say, he's doing things only has done in his career. So, Nick, who you got for your Hooper of the Year?
I'll be honest, bro. Like, I have a pick, but I'm really not that comfortable with it, man. It really hasn't been that easy. Because it's my thing, though. Like, in the beginning of the year, it was Steph. Then, obviously, Steph has his injury, and Steph starts to struggle shooting and everything. Then, for a minute, it was DeRozan. Then, all of a sudden, the Bulls start struggling. Jokic was my MVP for a minute, but I'm probably going to go with Giannis. I'm probably going to go with the Greek Freak, honestly. I mean, I understand I understand a lot of your points on, on Jokic, why he should be the MVP. I definitely think he's probably right behind Giannis, in my opinion, for the MVP award. But I mean, I don't know. I look at Giannis, even though he has missed a lot of games to injury, he has improved tremendously. I mean, we all know what he brings to the table offensively, and then of course, on the defensive end. But I think a lot of people don't really. I don't know, really, people really been paying attention, but his offensive bag has gotten a lot better, honestly. When you think about scoring around the mid range, just being able to create his own. His 3-point shot isn't necessarily there yet, but it's really coming about. But when you look at Giannis, like in my opinion, he's the best player in the league, just because he is the reigning champion. So I definitely think that you got to give it to him. But as far as this season, I just feel like he's improved overall, in all areas of his game.
That's definitely fair. I think coming down to the end of the year, what he's done over the last couple games, of course, the shot against Brooklyn to send an OT. He had a big block the night before that. I think he's really trying to sell his MVP case, which is tough throughout a year basis because month to month, everybody's going to have a month. So if I had to have a pick, I'd probably lean Giannis right now.
That's fair. Giannis is like Jokic. I feel like it's been there all year. He's been consistent from day one. He's probably the one that's been in the conversation from day, like you say. At one point it was Steph. Then for a lot of people, KD was in there before he got hurt. I feel like Jokic is the one that's always been there. My MVP and DeRozan and Ja have been there also. I'm going with Embiid though, honestly.
Okay.
At the beginning of the year, people are going to look at Philly's roster, and I think they're going to kind of overplay what their roster looks like. Up until the trade deadline, the team really hadn't been set because the Ben Simmons cloud had been there all year. And Embiid came out as business as usual. Before he got COVID, they were first in the East. He got COVID. He was out for a while. He said that he got hit really pretty hard, and the team kind of fell apart for a couple of weeks. And he came back and put them right back at the top of the East. The Bucks are currently have a better record than them, but it's like one game. It's 47 wins to 48 wins. So it's not like it's such a big difference. I just like how Embiid has carried them throughout the year. The numbers that he's put out throughout the season. I think you could go any way with Embiid, Jokic, or Giannis. But I'm going with Embiid to get it for the first time this year. I think he would have won it last year if he didn't get hurt at the end of the year.
I agree with that.
I had him for MVP last year too.
Yeah, so I'm not mad at both of y'all picks though, because Jokic has been the most consistent to me this year in every stage of the MVP conversation. No matter who was putting in, who was taking out, Jokic was always there.
Yeah, and I mean the real reason why I lean towards Jokic is because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the episode. Value. Who is the most valuable player? I think with Ben Simmons or without Joel Embiid, the Sixers, they've had a lot of success in years past, and even this year, this is the number one team in the Eastern Conference last year, right? I know if Nikola Jokic steps foot off the floor, the Denver Nuggets, they have one of the worst benches in the NBA, and overall their team would just plummet. And statistically, that's shown. Same thing for Joel Embiid this year, actually, as well. But I think he has a slightly better supporting cast. And then, a lot of people mention, Ben Simmons is out. Well, Michael Porter Jr. and Murray are both out. So that's really why I went with Nikola Jokic. And a lot of people, they like to point towards the standings, this guy is a 5th seed, he's in the 6th seed, and such is, top 3 in their conference. But if we're talking about value, I just feel like Nikola Jokic is much more valuable this year versus, Embiid and Giannis. But that's just my opinion. But none of us are really wrong in that sense.
Right. Yeah. And the standards haven't been a big deal for me this year because they're all right there. Like you said, the Bucks have one more win than Philly. Philly has one more win than the Nuggets. So it's not like he got 60 and y'all got 40. They're all right there. No, so,
exactly.
Yeah. So I agree. And Jokic has been putting up Wilt Chamberlain numbers. I wouldn't mind seeing him go back to back. But Giannis has been on a tear recently, though. So
I don't think there's really a clear cut favorite this year, though. It's like, this guy is ahead of everybody else. Like it's a really close call, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we legit won't know until they announce it, which is kind of rare, right?
Right. But with that being said, I think this is a conversation we can have on another show at some point. We would definitely like to have y'all on this so we can have that. But that I think wraps up the show this year. It's our second annual Hoopers Award. Nick Andre, Nicely Ball Fake Podcast. We appreciate y'all for coming on here.
Definitely.
Came on here like you're a professor, man. You was dropping. People that was watching was really paying attention to what you were saying when you were saying it because you were dropping some heat, straight ball.
Definitely.
Always, you the
Hey, y'all came with some fire too. Y'all really challenged me on some of my points. So I love the friendly banter, man.
No, for sure. We did. Like I said, we're gonna do this again on a regular show where we can actually just talk and we ain't necessarily worry about time constraints. But Nick, as always, appreciate you hopping on with us. Nice. This is the first time we've done something. Like I said, it's gonna be some more coming up.
Definitely, bro.
For sure.
Go check them out wherever they got work at. Podcast, Nick and the Hoop Truthers, which we still gotta come on.
Oh yeah, we definitely gonna get y'all on, man. This is like Outkast and UGK, bro. We gotta make it happen. International Players Anthem. We gotta make it happen.
Nice. We gonna figure out something. We gonna get some work in as well. Definitely.
For sure.
Everybody for coming out and watching. You got anything else real quick?
Oh no, just both of y'all. Just give them your info where they can find you at. Whatever, plug something, whatever you got going on. We'll go with you first, Nick.
Follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is actually right there next to my name at Nick Andre ATR. And obviously I got the Hoop Truthers pod. That we got a new episode coming out tomorrow. I got Count the Bucket that we're gonna be streaming actually about another hour and a half. So yeah, definitely check me out there. As far as writing, I got a few series in the works now. I'm not gonna give a date because I'm still stressed on that. I don't even know when they're gonna come out. But yeah, just look out for it.
All right, nice. Let them know. Plug something. Let them know what you got working, what you got going on, what's coming up for you.
Yeah, y'all can catch my podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, called The Ball Fake Podcast, as you can see below. Our social media handles are all the same, at Ball Fake Podcast. We're available on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you want to contact us for collabs or things of that nature, any stuff, just to follow the news and all the sports things that are going on in the NBA from that perspective. But, I had a really fun time just talking basketball with you guys. I really be trying to be on as many shows as possible. I hate when I can't talk basketball. Like I haven't posted an episode in a week and I've been kicking myself, so I'm glad that y'all hit me up for this collaboration. It was really fun.
No, for sure, man. Like I said, we appreciate y'all for coming on here. I'm John Douglas. Fresh Air. This was the Hoopers Annual Award Show.
Deuces.